garden lit by tiki torches, not in the broad, unforgiving daylight of a Saturday morning. It was funny, she thought, how even a couture gown from Shantung on Rodeo Drive managed to look tawdry in the morning light, especially when combined with a side slit, bare legs, and peep-toe spike heels with a crisscross ankle strap. Only last night every detail had whispered class. Now her outfit screamed hooker. No wonder she was getting funny looks. But last night, in the middle of everything, Kim hadn't been thinking about the morning. She'd just been thinking about getting away. It seemed as though 1,000,000 years had passed since then, since she had dressed so carefully, so filled with hope and optimism. Lloyd Johnson, star of the Lakers and the biggest client of the PR firm she worked for, was at the pinnacle of his career. More importantly for Kimberly, he'd found his dream house in Manhattan Beach. They planned to live there together. It was supposed to be her night, a moment of triumph in her career, maybe even a life-changing occasion if Lloyd had decided to pop the question. Well, it had been life-changing, just not in the way she'd anticipated. She had sunk everything she had into her career as a sports publicist, and overnight that career had crumbled. She was Jerry Maguire without the triumphant ending. She finally reached the front of the aircraft, murmuring a thank you to the flight attendants as she passed. It wasn't their fault the flight had been so miserable, and they'd been up all night too. Then, just as she stepped onto the jetway, the security doors opened and a ground crew guy in a jumpsuit and earphones blew in on a gust of frigid wind. The Arctic air slapped her like a physical assault, tearing at the silk dress and skimming over her bare legs. She gasped aloud and gathered a fringed wrap, the only outerwear she had, around her bare shoulders, clutching it in one fist, her jewel-encrusted peacock evening bag in the other. Sweet, merciful Lord! She had forgotten this, the East Coast cold that simply had no rival anywhere in California. She grabbed her long red hair, but was too late. It had already been blown into a terrifying bouffant, and she was fairly sure she'd lost an earring. Lovely. Holding her head high, she emerged from the jetway and entered the terminal, walking at a normal, unhurried pace, though she wanted to collapse. The red-soled Louboutins with their 3-inch heels, which had looked so fabulous with the single-shoulder sheath, now felt hideous on her feet. Silently cursing the couture shoes and clutching the silk wrap around her, she scanned the concourse for an open shop to buy something to wear on the last leg of the trip, to the town of Avalon, up in the Catskills, where her mother now lived. Last night there had been no time to grab anything, even if she had been thinking straight. She'd made the flight with moments to spare. To her dismay, all the kiosks and shops along the way were still closed. Never had she craved a pair of flip-flops and an I Heart New York t-shirt more. It was a long walk to the commuter concourse, especially in these heels. She passed people in warm winter clothes, probably heading up to the mountains for a weekend of fun. She pretended not to notice the looks of speculation, the comments whispered behind snugly gloved hands. Ordinarily, other people's opinions were her first concern. But not today. She was too tired to care what people were saying about her. Across the way stood a guy, leaning with his foot propped against the wall, staring at her. Okay, so a lot of guys were staring at her, since she was dressed like an escapee from a Hooters convention. He was easily 6'5" and had long hair, and he wore cargo pants and an army surplus parka with wolf fur around the hood. She was an idiot for not being able to ignore him. Men were her downfall. She should know better. And please, Lord, no. With a leisurely air, he pushed away from the wall and seemed to be ambling toward her. Kim had never been much of a student of literature, but as he advanced on her, she found herself remembering a phrase coined by Dorothy Parker. What fresh hell is this? More quickly than was prudent in the skinny heels, she headed for the moving walkway, wishing it could be a magic carpet, whisking her away from her troubles. She stepped aboard and felt one of her heels sink down between